Today we're going to be doing a comparison between British Airways and Virgin Atlantic in their premium economies. We'll check out the seats, we'll check out the food, the entertainment and those sweet little extras as well. So stay tuned, this is going to be an interesting ride. First up, let's talk ground operations and indeed check-in. Virgin Atlantic operate out of Heathrow's Terminal 3, that's their hub, and indeed their home. They have a dedicated premium check-in area, and whether it's at Heathrow or one of their many outstations, I've never had an issue checking in with them. British Airways, on the other hand, operate primarily out of Heathrow's Terminal 5. Whether it's indeed their home at T5 or one of the many outstations around the world, I've always found the check-in experience of premium economy to be very good indeed. Like Virgin, they have a dedicated premium economy check-in lane and you shouldn't have any issues checking in with either airline. A score draw on this front between them. Beyond the check-in, unfortunately, neither airline offers priority security or indeed lounge access as part of a premium economy ticket. Virgin Atlantic, operating out of Heathrow's Terminal 3, it does have a number of lounges you can buy yourself into if you want a little bit more of a special experience before boarding on the ground. For me, however, the points go to British Airways just here. The majority of their premium economy routes are operated out of Heathrow's Terminal 5. It's a newer terminal, it generally works in a far more slick manner, and that would be my vote of terminal to fly off from. So an additional point here for British Airways. Next up, I'm sure you're super keen to jump on board and see what life is like in the cabin themselves. We'll kick off with Virgin Atlantic and see what life is like aboard one of their newer Airbus A350 aircraft. Seats laid out in a 242 configuration. They got the wonderful purple leather. This has long been a signature, you could say, of Virgin Atlantic. I find the seats to be very comfortable and nice and roomy. On the A350s, they've got individual reading lights and overhead air vents. Overall, seatbacks looked absolutely superb, I think, as well. Lots of different charging options, some thoughtful little places where you could allow for additional storage. Legroom was absolutely fantastic as well. There was a little footrest, but unfortunately with Virgin, no calf rests aboard their newer aircraft, and this is something that we'll get into with British Airways. As mentioned, loads of different charging options. The tables do actually come out from the sides of the seats, but it would be the opposite armrest. From here, you've then just got some additional charging options down to the side and also some additional storage places just there. Overall with Virgin, a pretty decent start. So what then for British Airways? So we'll be taking a look just here at one of their pre-facelifted Dreamliners. We'll also be contrasting that against some of the footage that I took aboard a refitted 777 so you can see their absolute latest design. The seats go 232 across or 242 across on the slightly wider aircraft, just like the Airbus A350. Overall with British Airways, they drop the leather compared to Virgin, so the cabin perhaps doesn't look quite as stylish, you could say, but actually, I think it's function over form with British Airways, and I'm a huge fan of the calf rest that they have aboard their latest seat design. And what this means is that you can get the seat into a slight bit of a Z bed. Overall, most other features pretty similar. Overhead, you've got the lights. On some aircraft, you'll have the individual air vents, no doubt as well. Here's our absolute latest product just here. It doesn't look hugely different, but what you will notice from the base of the seats is the leg rests there that come out. For me, particularly when it comes time for sleeping, that makes one hell of a difference. In terms of other features aboard this absolute latest cabin, I quite like the little bottle holders just down in the footwells. They also had some footrests that you could utilise in addition to the calf rests as well. It's well worth mentioning that both airlines do have slightly older cabins across their fleets. With Virgin Atlantic, it would be their older Airbus A330s. With British Airways, it would be the 787s-8s, -9s and A380s at the time of recording. BA, however, just like Virgin Atlantic, are going through a modernisation programme, so you should get the latest seats across all aircraft. But if you do want the absolute best chance of getting the latest seats, I go 777 with British Airways at Heathrow or Airbus A350, and indeed Airbus A350 with Virgin Atlantic. As a final point, with British Airways, you will find plenty of charging options, whether it's on the seat back just in front of you or indeed the plug socket adapters just down in the footwells below. And finally, in terms of pre-departure service, I must say I always feel that little bit more special jumping aboard with Virgin Atlantic. All too often with British Airways, it's water or orange juice on offer. They do, however, redeem themselves with a hot towel service shortly after the takeoff. For now, let's take to the skies and see what the experience is like in flight. As we take to the skies, let's firstly talk bathrooms. One of the aspects I loved about Virgin Atlantic over the years is they do typically seem to have a separate bathroom for the premium economy passengers. With British Airways, it's always shared with economy. This is an example here of what the bathroom would look like. Not massively different, but just in terms of look and feel, and feeling as though you've paid for something genuinely different and separate from economy. I really like Virgin's approach, and I do wish this is something that British Airways would adopt again. It just goes back to that feeling that you just feel that little bit more special flying premium economy with Virgin Atlantic. So next up, let's talk entertainment. To be honest, I think both airlines are pretty strong just here. In terms of Virgin Atlantic, you do just get a standard economy headset. We'll contrast that in a moment to British Airways. Aboard their Airbus A350, I found a really nice, large, very responsive entertainment screen. Plenty also of TV and movie choices. I'm pleased to say that their aircraft are also Wi-Fi enabled. They had a range of different packages that you could choose from. In terms of pricing and overall value for money, I thought this was so-so, and we'll see how this contrasts to British Airways in just a moment. So, to contrast for a moment against British Airways, here's their older seatback design. You can see here a little bit of a laggy screen. The screen itself is that little bit more washed out, much less responsive just here. In terms of the British Airways High Life entertainment system, I actually personally think it's one of the best in the world. Loads of different choices available to you. We'll be right up there with Virgin's on this front. We'll take a moment just here to contrast it against their newer design, just to keep it fair and also consistent with their newer design. Again, much newer screens, far more flat screen in terms, I guess, of their appearance, quick to respond, but the same High Life entertainment system. On the Wi-Fi front, I think this is where British Airways really do very well. Reason why is because they've recently introduced free of charge messaging throughout the duration of a flight to all executive club members. You can just sign up on board if you're not already a member, so I think this is really very generous. If you want browsing and streaming above and beyond that, that is something that you can pay for, but again, this was cheaper than Virgin Atlantic, so BA ahead just here, and an area where they're particularly ahead is on the headset front. The headset in premium economy is very akin to what you get in the business class with British Airways, a world away from that cheap economy plasticky looking headset with Virgin. I think in terms of entertainment, for me, British Airways is just ahead. Alrighty, so next up we're going to cover the critical topic of catering. Just before we do so, I should say if this is your first time viewing the channel, I've got so much similar content on the channel from the likes of Virgin Atlantic, British Airways and so many other airlines. So if you hit that subscribe button, YouTube will help you stay up to date with every development on the channel. On my recent flight with Virgin Atlantic, it was a really strong menu with them, 2 different services across a 7 or so hour flight and a decent selection of drinks on the flip side of the menu. In terms of the table, as mentioned a little bit earlier, that comes out from the armrest side of the seat. Nice and firm. I quite like the design of this one as well. Before the meals were brought around, there were some little snacks and also a drink service. Note here, again, real glasses, no plastic cups used on Virgin Atlantic. As for the meal itself then, well actually I thought this was fantastic. The presentation on everything, by the time you've taken, of course, all of the little lids off, looked absolutely superb. Again, real china, real glassware, real cutlery as well. I went for the lasagna on this particular trip and must say from start to finish, the food service was absolutely fantastic. The only slightly odd element that they went with was wine by the can. So let's crack that one open and see exactly what the experience is like with wine out of a can. Yeah, actually, it was pretty good, so not a bad approach just here. All rounded off with a wonderful little dessert and also a cheese plate as well. As a final point before we head back to British Airways, it's little features, little touches with Virgin I think that make a big difference. These little salt shakers are yours to take home. The different colours throughout the various different cabins in the upper class, for example, they're gold, a nice little touch. So what then for British Airways? Well, to be honest, I've never had a bad meal aboard with British Airways Premium Economy. In terms of the table design, this works fairly similar to Virgin, slightly older style just here, but otherwise it has a 2-stage fold out and I quite like this overall design. They also have menus in Premium Economy, not quite as fancy, you could say, as the one from Virgin, a little bit smaller. In terms of the flight duration, this was very similar to the one showed with Virgin Atlantic, and again, British Airways have 2 services, but one being towards the slightly lighter side, so we'll check both of them out in just a moment, but we'll start, as we did with Virgin, with the main service first. Just like Virgin Atlantic, British Airways roll around a quick snack service and also a drink service before the meals come around. Unfortunately, no real glassware for this. This is an aspect that I think you really need to look at. It's the little things that make the biggest difference, and plastic cutware in a premium cabin should be nowhere to be seen. As for the meal itself, presentation, not quite as good as Virgin, I would say. It looks like an economy meal, slightly enhanced when it comes to the tastes and flavours. However, some of the best meals I've actually had on board flights have been the main dishes with British Airways Premium Economy. This one actually was largely no different. So both pretty close, but I think when it comes to the presentation, Virgin Atlantic are quite a distance ahead. As is so often the case with the British Airways catering, it's the dessert that's often the best bit. So let's give this one a go and see what it's like. Yeah, as ever, pretty good. Let's move on to the second service just here. So with Virgin Atlantic, it was a transatlantic flight that I was doing. It was to be an afternoon tea, and frankly, it was absolutely phenomenal. The crew were very kind on this occasion. They actually gave me both options just so I could contrast those for everyone. This was the main offering in terms of the scones, the sandwiches, etc. There were then also some macarons that would be the slightly other choice as well. Otherwise, however, once again, wonderfully presented. Love the big mug of tea just there. As for British Airways, with the second service, as is so often the case with them, they cheap out a little bit just here. This was a very similar snack, akin no doubt to what they were serving back in the economy section. And although actually this particular chicken wrap was pretty tasty, you can see it's a long way behind Virgin Atlantic. So for that reason, and that reason alone, I would give top marks to Virgin on the food front, with BA just because their presentation coming in just behind. So next up, let's talk creature comforts. One of the really good things with British Airways, regardless whether it's a night flight or a day flight, you get a little amenity kit from them. It's nothing as fancy as what you'd expect up in the business class, but it actually has all of the essentials you'd need. Unfortunately, with Virgin Atlantic, you only get the amenity kits on the overnight flight. So actually, there's one point here for British Airways over Virgin Atlantic. Something else I absolutely love about BA is the fact that you get a really high quality blanket and also pillow as well. Again, with Virgin, the pillow felt very economy-esque. So actually, in terms of little creature comforts, it's British Airways slightly ahead here for me, particularly, again, when it comes time for sleeping, with the ability to get into a bit of a Z-bed style of position. With those all-important calf rests, it's BA well ahead for me. So that all leads me on to my final thoughts. Now, I debated with this video doing a big scoring system and keeping tally throughout, but to be honest with you, my job as a YouTuber is to shine the light, and it's up to you to make your final opinion. My opinion, however, I think they're very closely matched. If it was a straight shootout between them both, same price, same route, for me, it would probably be Virgin. I think you do feel that little bit more special flying premium economy with Virgin Atlantic. That all being said, I think BA do supremely well in certain areas. Love the seat comfort, particularly for sleeping, and also the fact that they're a member of the One World Alliance, which for me is streets ahead of Virgin's SkyTeam. Very much hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm so keen to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's make this video a bit of a community where we can share more recent experiences as the airlines change over the months and years ahead. Otherwise, all that's left for me to say is to thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in another one real soon.